Welcome to the Deconstructionist Deep Dive.
The podcast that doesn't just accept the story.
We break it
We examine the pieces.
and expose the machinery inside.
Let's dive in.
What if everything about the fair debate on campus isn't just wrong, but is designed to be wrong?
That's really the question driving us today, isn't it? We're looking at something you see all the time, these big campus debate tours. You know, the ones often linked with groups like Turning Point USA, featuring figures like Charlie Kirk.
Right. And the key thing here is we're stepping back from the arguments themselves. We're not here to fact-check economic stats or specific policies today. That feels almost too surface level.
Exactly.
We're digging into the architecture of the event, the performance itself. How was it built? How is it engineered, really, to always produce a particular outcome? You know, no matter how good the counterargument might be.
That's the core of it. Our sources break this down using something called the Cognitive Liberation Protocol. Like a set of different lenses. It lets us analyze the power stuff, the emotional games, the way the whole structure is, frankly, rigged.
So forget debating the politics for a second. We're analyzing performance, psychology, media strategy, and the conclusion this framework points to is, well, it's pretty stark. It's saying this isn't real dialogue.
Not even close. It calls it an asymmetric power ritual. That phrase really hits, doesn't it? An asymmetric power ritual,
Wow.
or even a staged ideological slaughterhouse. Oof. Designed purely for propaganda, getting new recruits and, making the existing believers feel good.
Asymmetric, meaning unequal from the start.
Totally unequal. That's the absolute key. The professional speaker, the whole setup versus a student volunteer, they're not playing the same game. It's like the system is built to guarantee a win before anyone even picks up a mic.
Okay, let's unpack that asymmetry. First to mention this protocol, logical warfare. This is what they call the scalpel, dissecting the rhetorical tricks, the structural traps used to make sure the student opponent, loses the argument on logic, even if their point is valid.
Yeah, it's like they're building rhetorical quicksand right there on the stage.
How does that work in practice?
Well, it's about engineering scenarios you just can't win in. Think about it. The tight time limits, the pressure of the crowd, the speaker's own training. It makes offering a thoughtful, nuanced response almost impossible.
So tactic number one, and you see this everywhere, is false dichotomies. Forcing really complex stuff into these super simple either choices.
Oh, absolutely. The classic example the sources point to is, do you love America or hate America? It sounds like a question, but it's really a loyalty test, right?
There's no room for nuance.
None. It just wipes out the idea of critical allegiance. The ability to be deeply committed to your country's ideals, but still fiercely critical of its actions or its history. The second you offer that critique, boom, you're branded a hater. Conversation over.
It's like a trap door. Once you fall in, they hit you with tactic two. Loaded questions and presuppositions. These aren't genuine questions, are they? They've got the judgment baked right in.
Precisely. Take that abortion question. If it's not murder, what is it? See, the premise that it is murder is already assumed.
So the student is stuck.
Completely stuck. Under all that pressure, they either have to agree with the murder framing, which they probably don't, or spend their whole 90 seconds trying to unpack the word murder instead of actually arguing their point about rights or healthcare. It just eats up their time and energy.
And that quicksand gets deeper with tactic three, causal reductionism. This is where they take huge, complicated problems and blame them on one single thing.
Yeah, the political bogeyman of the day, like blaming the entire housing crisis, which has roots going back decades, or global inflation spikes, just blaming it all on, say, democratic spending.
It ignores everything else.
Totally. Global supply chains, wars, local zoning laws, all the messy real-world stuff gets ignored. It simplifies everything down to this side good, that side bad, makes complex policy seem like a simple morality play.
Which brings us straight to the weaponization of data. The sources say that when they use stats like only 15 unarmed black men were killed by police in a year, it's not really about presenting evidence.
No, it's used as a conversation terminator. That's a really critical idea.
Okay, explain that. How does a statistic terminate a conversation?
Because it's presented in isolation.
Okay.
On its own, that number might seem small, right? So it makes the speaker look like they're debunking systemic racism with facts. But it deliberately ignores the massive context. It ignores all the data on non-lethal force, racial profiling in traffic stops, aggressive policing patterns, all the things that actually show systemic bias. The 15 stat tells you almost nothing about the overall experience of policing for that community.
But wait, if the number itself, the 15, is factually accurate, even if it's cherry-picked, can't they still claim they won the logical point?
Yeah.
How do you fight a fact, even a misleading one, without just sounding defensive?
That's the tactical move you have to make. You don't challenge the number itself. You challenge the reason they're using only that number.
You expose the intention.
Exactly. You shift the focus. You say, okay, that number addresses fatalities, but what does it tell us about the system? About disparate treatment in arrests, searches, daily interactions. You point out it's like statistical sleight of hand, right? Making a narrow fact pretend to represent the whole truth. The student has to see they're using a tiny piece of data to dismiss a much bigger reality.
Got it. And the last logical tactic here is strategic inconsistency. Basically, changing the rules depending on who they're talking about.
Yep. Double standards. Like dismissing the vice president's role as purely symbolic when it's Kamala Harris.
But you know they wouldn't say that about a Republican VP.
Never. The level of proof needed, what counts as relevant, how much scrutiny is applied, it all shifts based on the political target. It's designed to make the opponent always look wrong-footed or, just dumb. Okay, so we've seen the logical traps. Now let's zoom out, put down that scalpel, and pick up the wider lens. This is about emotional warfare, the PSY-OPS dimension, controlling how the audience feels, shaping the story.
It sounds like it'll be incredibly draining just being in that room. That kind of constant high drama, that intensity, that's got to be part of the strategy itself, right?
Oh, absolutely. It wears people down.
Yeah.
And it all starts with setting up the main story right from the beginning. The sources call the core narrative. The wise general liberating the brainwashed youth.
Wow. Okay, so that immediately casts the speaker as the brave truth teller, the hero fighting the system.
Exactly. The courageous outsider. And at the same time, it paints any student asking a tough question as like a poor, confused victim, brainwashed by their woke university.
So the audience is primed to sympathize with the speaker before the student even opens their mouth.
Totally. It creates this hostile environment for anyone pushing back. The speaker's the rebel, the student questioning them is somehow the establishment. It flips reality.
And the techniques to reinforce this, they get kind of weirdly physical and ritualistic, like feigned sincerity, saying things like, I hope we can earn back your support right after tearing someone down.
Yeah, it's that soft cop move after the hard cop attack. It puts a nice little bow on the aggression, makes it seem like you're being reasonable. But the most blatant example, the sources say, is the whole hat thing. Giving a branded hat to a student after they've been, publicly vested.
The ritual of submission and conversion.
That's exactly how the analysis frames it. It's not just a gift. It's a public symbol. The student accepts the hat, accepts the ideology right there in front of everyone, often after being made to look foolish.
And that becomes great content for them online.
The perfect content, highly shareable clips showing conversion, that's the real payoff for the organization.
And fueling all this emotion is apocalyptic framing. Taking everyday political disagreements and blowing them up into these existential crises.
The language is unmistakable, talking about a 5-alarm fire for Western civilization or calling the other side a cult of death.
Why do that? What does it achieve?
Two things, mainly. First, it justifies the speaker's own aggressive tactics. I mean, if you're fighting a cult of death to save civilization, then anything goes, right? No rhetorical punch is too harsh.
Okay.
Second, it makes any extreme policy position they hold seem necessary. You have to take drastic measures to stop this existential threat. It shuts down calls for moderation.
Which leads to the final piece. Emotional branding. Connecting their side with all the good stuff.
Yeah, courage, reason, strength. That's the brand.
While the opposition, especially if it's a young woman or a student of color asking a question, gets framed as
confusion, weakness, moral failure, pure emotion, no logic. If a student pauses or can't instantly recall some obscure statistic, they're not just wrong on the facts. They're portrayed as fundamentally weak, confused, basically proving the speaker's point about failing universities. It turns intellectual disagreement into a judgment on their character.
Okay, so we've got the logical tricks, the emotional manipulation.
Right.
Now we move up a level to strategic command. If the logic and emotion are the soldiers, this is like the general's map room. Looking at the system itself, the incentives that make sure this whole spectacle serves the organization's real goals.
Right. And the big insight here is the debate itself isn't the main goal. That's just the show.
It's a means to an end.
Exactly. The stated purpose might be dialogue or hearing from students, but if you follow the money, follow the incentives. The real beneficiaries are the organizations putting these things on. Their goals are recruitment, fundraising, and keeping their own base energized. Intellectual exploration. not really on the list.
So the debate generates the clips.
The clips go viral.
The views bring in donations.
Which funds the next tour? It's a cycle. A media feedback loop where the only thing that really matters is getting footage that shows the speaker winning, reinforcing their narrative.
Which means the system has to be rigged to guarantee that outcome. And the core of that rigging is the asymmetric power dynamics.
Absolutely. It's fundamentally unequal. You've got a paid professional media personality. They're prepped. They've done this hundreds of times. They control the mic, the stage, the edit.
Versus a student. Probably nervous, maybe first time on a stage like that. Definitely unprepared for these kinds of rhetorical tactics.
And look at the time. The student gets maybe 90 seconds for a question, maybe a minute follow-up. The speaker has essentially unlimited time. They have hours of rehearsed material. They can talk over, dismiss, pivot, filibuster.
Steamroll them.
Pretty much. And the analysis also points out how this reinforces certain social hierarchies. It calls it hierarchical reinforcement.
How so?
Well, think about the visual. Often, it's the confident, usually male, expert speaker publicly correcting students, who are often women, or students of color, or just diverse voices. It subtly reinforces this traditional, almost patriarchal model of who holds knowledge and who gets corrected in public. It's not just ideology being pushed, it's a social structure being reinforced.
Which brings us to the ultimate trump card. Narrative control and the illusion. The sources stress that the power to edit the video afterwards is, well, it's everything.
It's the ultimate safety net. No matter what actually happened in the room, maybe the speaker got stumped, maybe they looked bad for a moment, the final clip that goes viral on YouTube, it'll always show them winning decisively.
Because they control the cuts, the music, the text on screen.
Everything. They craft the narrative after the fact. Which means that whole open mic thing, it's not about open discussion at all.
It's a design system for generating failure for anyone who challenges them. It's pure political spectacle.
Right, and that's why the sources use that powerful analogy. The open mic illusion is like the Roman Colosseum.
Yeah, we'll break that down.
The Colosseum wasn't about fair fights, was it? It was a spectacle designed to entertain the masses and reinforce the power of the emperor and the social order. People knew the fights were rigged, but they went for the show.
So, accepting this campus event as a fair debate
means you're willingly stepping into their rigged arena, playing by their rules. You're guaranteeing the spectacle continues and their power gets reinforced. You've lost before you start.
Right, we've dissected the logic, the emotion, the system. Now we get to the crucial part, the metacognitive level. This is where we build the defense, not by arguing facts within their frame, but by taking apart the frame itself, philosophical reframing.
Yeah, we have to stop playing their game and start questioning the rules of the game. Is the liberation engine breaking free from their control?
Let's start with what seems like a massive internal contradiction, the central paradox and projection. The speaker operates on this paradox, right?
Yeah.
They demand absolute rigor from students.
Oh, yeah. Footnotes, citations, perfect stats, instant recall.
They demand university-level sourcing from a kid in a microphone.
Right. But then their own main arguments, the bedrock of their worldview, they're often these huge, sweeping, emotional claims like Democrats are the cult of death.
Where's the evidence for that?
Exactly. The standard of proof for the student is impossibly high, but the standard for the speaker to make these giant inflammatory claims is basically zero. They demand rigor, but deploy pure rhetoric. It's a total mismatch.
And that mismatch leads straight to projection, accusing others of exactly what you're doing.
Textbook projection. They yell about students being propagandized, brainwashed victims. Meanwhile, the entire event they are running is this incredibly sophisticated, meticulously planned propaganda operation designed for mass media. The manipulator is accusing the audience of being manipulated.
So how do we dismantle their core arguments philosophically? Let's take that binary patriotism, the love it or hate it thing.
The analysis compares it directly to a feudal oath of fealty, like swearing blind, unquestioning loyalty to a king no matter what he does.
It's inherently anti-democratic.
Totally. So the counter, we call it critical patriotism.
Okay, what's that based on?
Well, you can draw from Stoicism, for instance. The Stoics taught that your real duty is to principles justice, virtue not necessarily to the current rulers or even the state itself if it's acting unjustly. It's loyalty to ideals, not blind obedience.
And are there modern examples?
Absolutely. Think of someone like James Baldwin. He nailed it. He said something like, "I love America more than any other country, and precisely for this reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually."
That's powerful. Love demands critique.
Exactly. It's the perfect defense against that false dichotomy. It says deep love and constant criticism aren't opposites, they're fundamentally linked.
Okay, let's apply that reframing to the biological reductionism in the abortion debate, reducing it all down to heartbeats or babies. The sources say this is basically.
Theocratic decree dressed up in pseudo-scientific language. It uses biology to mask a fundamentally moral or religious agenda about controlling reproduction.
So what are the philosophical counterarguments?
Well, you could bring in perspectives from, say, Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah.
Many Buddhist traditions see consciousness or ensoulment not as an instant switch flipped at conception, but as a gradual process. That alone complicates the hard biological line they try to draw.
And from a different angle.
Feminist critical theory. Think Simone de Beauvoir. From that perspective, the legislation of motherhood forcing pregnancy isn't primarily about biology at all. It's a mechanism of patriarchal control. It's about regulating female bodies and autonomy.
So it shifts the whole question. It's not just when does life begin, it's who gets to control women's bodies and lives.
Precisely. It exposes the power dynamics hidden beneath the biological language.
Okay, one more. The tyranny of aggregate data. Using big economic stats to dismiss individual struggle. The GDP is up, unemployment is low, so you personally must be doing fine.
Yeah, the analysis calls this managerial elitism, using top-down numbers to invalidate someone's lived reality.
And the counterstance. How do you defend personal experience against a spreadsheet?
Phenomenology, the philosophical idea that your lived experience, your Lebenswelt, is the primary reality. The feeling of being insecure, not being able to afford rent, seeing no future. That is truth, regardless of the national average.
It reminds me of David Graeber.
Yes. He argued exactly this. If the big metrics, GDP, whatever, are going up, but actual people's well-being isn't improving, then the metrics are the failure, not the people. It's the ultimate form of gaslighting, telling someone their own suffering isn't real because the official numbers say things are good.
Okay, to really make this practical, let's dive into the specific tricks the Armory of Deceptions identified in this cognitive liberation protocol. Moving from the big philosophical ideas to the nitty-gritty conversational traps.
Right, we need to be able to spot these things in real time, like recognizing enemy uniforms on the battlefield. Let's start with the real gotcha tactics.
Like Deception 2. Demand for instant. Perfect specifics. You see this all the time online too. Moving the goalposts or ceiling. They demand you instantly cite a specific study or the exact wording of a law.
From a student who's obviously not a walking encyclopedia, standing under bright lights in front of a hostile crowd.
Where does the power of that tactic come from?
It comes directly from that asymmetric power we talked about. The performer versus the unprepared individual. And the impact. It's designed to weaponize intellectual insecurity.
How so?
It implants this idea that unless you have flawless, instant recall of every single detail, your gut feelings, your values, your lived experience, they don't count. They're invalid. The sources call it gotcha jurisprudence, like a lawyer trying to trip up a witness on a tiny technicality to discredit everything they say. It's not about finding truth, it's about trapping them.
Okay, shifting to the moral arena. How language itself is weaponized.
Let's look at Deception 4. Reduction of abortion to heartbeat baby. It sounds simple, maybe even scientifically neutral to some, but it's a deliberate, powerful equivocation.
And the power behind it.
It draws on centuries of theocratic and patriarchal weight. Those words aren't just words. They carry immense institutional backing and deep cultural resonance.
And the real-world impact, the analysis argues, is
it effectively enslaves women to the state. By reducing a complex situation to just baby, it gives a dependent cluster of cells more legal standing, more bodily autonomy than the actual living, breathing, rights-holding person carrying it. It's a linguistic tool aimed at stripping sovereignty from women, disguised as moral concern.
Wow. Okay, then there's Deception 6, performance of sincerity and prayer. That moment after they've rhetorically curled someone and they say, I'll pray for you.
Ugh, pure emotional warfare. And it works because it leverages basic social decency against the person.
How does it do that?
It's the ultimate passive-aggressive power move, isn't it? It frames the speaker as morally superior, compassionate even, while subtly condemning the person they just attacked. And the devastating part is, how can the student respond?
Right, you can't really fight back against I'll pray for you.
Exactly. If you push back, you suddenly look like you're attacking religion or prayer or basic kindness. The speaker instantly shifts the ground from logic to spirituality, and the student is silenced. They can't defend themselves without seeming like a bad person to the audience. It's a trap.
Finally, the meta-deception, the one that protects the whole operation.
Great. Deception 7, the just talking to voters defense. When people point out how manipulative, how one-sided, how propagandistic these events are, the fallback is always,
Hey, we're just having conversations. We're engaging with students. What's wrong with that?
it's blatant historical revisionism and gaslighting, amplified by their media platform. They mount this huge, expensive, professionally produced media spectacle, but they describe it like it's just a casual chat in a town square.
The P.T. Barnum hustle, as the source calls it.
Exactly. A complex con disguised as simple, honest engagement. And the biggest danger, it completely messes with the audience's ability to recognize media bias. It trains people to swallow sophisticated propaganda as if it were just raw, unfiltered reality. The moment you buy that it's a fair, good faith discussion, they've won. You've accepted the rigged game.
Okay, we've taken the whole thing apart, the logic traps, the emotional conditioning, the rigged system, the specific deceptions. So pulling it all together, what's the keystone lie? The one big illusion holding this entire performance structure up?
I think the analysis nails it. The ultimate deception is believing that the master's tools, using their definition of debate, their cherry-picked data, their version of reason, can somehow dismantle the master's house when the whole game is rigged from the foundation up.
The format is the message.
The format is the message. The power imbalance is the argument. The moment you agree to step onto that stage, onto their terms, in that asymmetrical debate, you've already conceded the core point. The architecture itself is designed to isolate you, put you on the defensive, make you doubt yourself, and crucially, generate those viral clips of your defeat.
So the synthesis is, this whole thing isn't about exchanging ideas at all.
Not fundamentally. It's a raw demonstration of power. It's theater designed specifically to make anyone who disagrees feel intellectually inadequate and alone. It's a performance calculated to crush confidence, discourage future questions, and solidify the speaker's authority within their own group.
So, given all that, how do you fight back? How do we equip listeners? What's the cognitive sovereignty protocol?
It starts with one crucial step. Reject the frame. Stop trying to win by their rules.
Yeah.
Don't answer the loaded questions directly. If they hit you with, if it's not murder, what is it? Don't get trapped in their binary. You challenge the question itself. You ask, why are you forcing this complex ethical issue into only two predefined boxes? Or why are you using emotionally loaded language instead of discussing policy? You refuse the premise.
Okay, step 1, reject the frame. Step 2.
Expose the process. Shift your focus. Stop arguing about the specific statistic or the policy detail that's their battlefield. Instead, talk about the process. Talk about the manipulative structure of the event itself.
Point out the Colosseum. Don't just argue with the gladiator inside it.
Exactly. Highlight the asymmetry, the time limits, the editing power, the emotional manipulation. Make the rigged game the topic of conversation, not just the moves within the game.
And finally,
reclaim sovereignty. Remember that your mind, your own experiences, your critical thinking, that's the one space they can't truly conquer unless you willingly surrender it by accepting their terms, their definitions, their frames. Thinking for yourself, in this context, means actively thinking against the spectacle they've constructed. Reject the illusion of the fair fight on their rigged battlefield.
The ultimate freedom, then, is just refusing to play their game.
And that's our deep dive for this week.
Remember, the most dangerous illusion is the one you don't know you're in.
But now you know. So here's our question for you. Where in your own life have you accepted a version of reality because it was easier than asking the hard questions?
Let us know in the comments. Question the narrative. Deconstruct the dogma. See the system.
We'll see you next time. Stay skeptical. Thank you for joining us.